Peace. This is Sister Colette, your sister by nature. Welcome to Canning with Colette. So I am in the process of testing the lids to make sure that they sealed properly before I put them away. So in this case, I made a batch of navy bean soup. And so I've actually already tested the lids. I'm not going to put the bands back on. I'm going to leave the bands off just for added security. And that's a whole nother subject, but I don't put the bands back on. It's recommended that you leave the bands off when you go to store them for long term. The reason for this video is I wanted to talk about, the question I get often, particularly when it comes to beans, is whether or not you should pre-boil, or some people call it parboil, your beans before canning, and how long you should do all that, and do you have to soak your beans? All right, so let's talk about that really quickly. And I am coming, I'm going by, the standard that has been given by the USDA standards, the American Food Preservation Association, what they are recommending and how I do it, okay? So when it comes to navy beans, or really any type of bean, it could be black bean, pinto beans, or whatever. Now, those are very low acid foods, number one. So we're going to be using the pressure canning method for canning, okay? What you're going to want to do first is pre-soak your beans, okay? So that means, you're going to wash them well, rinse them well, and then, soak them in some water, 12 to 24 hours, whatever works for you, right? People will use the term overnight, soak them overnight, but it may not be overnight for you, so give them a good, between 12 to 24 hour good soak, okay? After you've already rinsed them well. And what this does is it kind of rehydrates them, right? It adds some hydration back to the bean. Then after that, what you're going to do is, pour that water off, and then, add some fresh water, or maybe you're using a broth, however you like to do it, to it. And then you're going to place it on a stock pot on your stove, and you're going to simmer it for 30 minutes. So you're going to bring it to a boil, and then just let it kind of boil on a low boil, kind of a high simmer, maybe like a medium type simmer for 30 minutes. So you don't want to have a rapid boil for 30 minutes and not too low, but somewhere in the middle for 30 minutes, okay? And this is still, softening up the bean and adding hydration to the bean before you add it to your jars for canning, okay? So you should do that, okay? Because you don't want to, one reason for it is, like I said, you want to rehydrate your bean. You would never want to just put dry beans in your liquid and then start canning, okay? You don't want to do that for sure. Because, that texture of those beans are super hard. You want to get them soft so that heat can start to penetrate into the bean properly, so that it's killing off the, natural enzymes and microorganisms that could be in the bean and cause your food to spoil. All right, so it's a process, but you don't want to skip those steps. So make sure that you pre-soak, and then make sure that you pre-boil before you even get to the canning process, okay? Now, one thing you can do, and I got to start doing this because I am notorious for forgetting to soak my beans, soak my beans overnight or for 12 hours, whatever. I forget 98% of the time. And then I'll wake up like, oh my God, I forgot to put my, soak my beans. And then I'll just wait till the next day and then start all over. But what you actually can do is kind of like an expedited way. I don't know what the real terminology is, but you can kind of expedite it. And what you would do is, same thing, rinse them well, clean them up, sort them, make sure you take out any bad beans, put them in your stock pot, fill it, make sure you have a good amount of water or broth above the beans, and then bring it to a boil for about 3 minutes. Okay, then turn off the heat, and then just let it set for 30 minutes. No, excuse me, an hour. Let it set for an hour, okay? And then after that hour's up, then go ahead and proceed with your normal canning process, okay? So that will expedite it. You definitely can do that, which I've got to start practicing that more, because it's probably me just giving up an excuse to not can that day. Like, oh, I forgot to, oh, well, wait till tomorrow, But you definitely can do that. As a matter of fact, as I'm thinking about this, I might do that today because I don't have any beans that are pre-soaked. And so it's a good method to use, because maybe you really hadn't planned to can beans, but all of a sudden you realize, hey, I got some time to can today. I'm kind of open. but I didn't take any beans out to soak them. Well, go ahead and use that expedited process to soak them for an hour, and then you can move ahead with your canning process. So I hope that this was helpful on the subject of whether or not it is necessary to pre-soak and pre-boil your beans before canning. I'm Sister Colette, your sister by nature. If you found this valuable, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe today. Peace, y'all.